going on, everybody? Hope you guys have had a wonderful day. Each day brings you closer to Friday and then the weekend. Hope you guys also had a safe and wonderful Memorial Day. So with that out of the way, I want to thank each and every one of you guys who continue to watch my videos. I cannot even express enough how much that means to me and how cool it is, because I never thought that starting a channel would be something that I would have been doing. And while I've been doing it less than a year now, and to have the amount of people subscribed is totally awesome. And I want to continue raising that. I rarely say this, and you can look at all my videos that I rarely say this, but if you're new here, go ahead and like and subscribe. Please, if you have any ideas for any content, by all means, leave it in the comments and let me know, and I will go out of my way to try to find those, the stories that are recommended and do a reaction to it. Tonight, right now, it's Tuesday, right? It's Tuesday? Yep, that's right, it's Tuesday. And what that means is Mike O released one of his videos today, so we're going to cover another awesome documentary by...
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike. My name is Mike, and in this whole video, right to set the scene, the year it is 2017, and a woman named Cheryl, she is driving to a house she just recently purchased with her husband Gerald. The house they just bought, it was supposed to be like their retirement, and she was driving there because he was already at the house, he was working, and Cheryl was gonna surprise him there. And it was in the great state of Idaho. Cheryl and her husband Gerald, they'd been married 7 years, and they were planning on being happy and living out their golden years in this beautiful house. She'd be doing their arts, there was land, it was lovely. So Gerald was there, he was doing up the house, getting it ready for them, and Cheryl was going to surprise him. That is all what Cheryl thought was gonna happen. In turn, Cheryl would actually be the one getting the surprise. All of that was one big lie, which would lead to a man being on the run, a hunt in a national park, and a vanishing into the woods. Alright, I think that's probably enough setup. Let's give it a go! In eastern Idaho, not far from Boise, is a town called Caldwell. And there, right on the northern side of town, in the last few neighborhoods before it's pure farmland, lies a house. This is in Canyon County, and boy oh boy were some people very, very excited to be moving into that house in the summer of 2017.
Well, folks, here's my new backyard. Kind of liking this just a little bit. Still a little bit of fence to build here. Actually, a lot. Dogs are the only thing that's grazing now, but that will change. This is where the chickens live. You can't even see the house because of all the trees. Yeah, baby. We're loving it.
It was a summer of love, and super happy during those days was Nadja and Payton Medley. Nadja was Payton's mother, and she was 47 years old. She was born in Germany, and her family still lives there, but she moved to Utah as a youth, and was all about her 14-year-old daughter Payton, born in Utah herself. They were together always. See, Nadja didn't always have it easy. Her husband and Payton's father, Tom Medley, He had passed away from a heart attack 3 years before our story takes place. He had passed away in 2014. Nadja and Tom, they ran a pet store together in the city of Ogden, Utah, before his passing. See, one thing about the Medleys is they loved animals. They were mad about them, they just loved being around them. Dogs, cats, horses, you name it, they were into it. If it wasn't human and had a heartbeat, they were about it. And in fact, that was one of the reasons Nadja and Payton were so excited to be moving, from Utah to Caldwell, Idaho, because this property, it had a lot of land around it, so they would have plenty of room for their dogs and their cats, and they were even going to get some farm animals there, maybe goats and horses and all that. See, Nadja and Payton, they weren't moving, to this house in Idaho by themselves. This whole move had been orchestrated by the new man in Nadja's life, and I guess Payton's life too. His name was Mike Bullinger. Mike Bullinger was 60 years of age, a commercial pilot by occupation. He had recently gotten a job flying out of Boise, and he had purchased the home for himself and his new girlfriend Nadja and her daughter. He said he'd grown up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but he was a non-believer now. Nadja, she was a pretty strong atheist, and he told Nadja, he'd been divorced for 10 years, and Nadja, who was a widower, him a long-time divorcee, they hit it off. He'd been dating Nadja for about 2 years by this point in 2017. They had met when he walked into Nadja's new place of work, a massage parlor called Old World Massage. After her husband's death, she couldn't keep up the pet store by herself, so this is what she was doing now. And Mike, he sweats Nadja off her feet, and Payton too. They were absolutely mad about him. He was a great guy. He would take them around the place. They spent all their time together.
Oh, this is hairy one. Okay, get close. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, shit. Uh-oh.
Payton too, she loved Mike. She even called him Dad. That's how close they were. Friends of the Medleys would all say he was a nice, calm, pleasant man, generous with his time and with what he had. As his job was a pilot, he would sometimes have to spend days away from Nadja and Payton, Medleys, sometimes days away from them, sometimes weeks away from them, flying around the country. But when he was there with his girlfriend and with her daughter, who began to look at him as a father, he was there 100%. He was all about it. Here they are out at dinner.
Let's call it cream face.
That sounds so wrong.
Yeah. You know it's gonna happen.
Well, is this going to happen here or what?
God, I'm just thinking to myself, how scary that would be to be involved with someone for 7 years and they're not the person that they say they are. Sounds like my last marriage.
Or here, showing Payton how to shoot a gun.
Where's this spool? Get a good grip on it. There you go. Other hand, support that hand just like that. Cock the trigger, put your finger in the trigger guard and shoot it. Okay? Aim at the target. Don't think about it, just pull the trigger.
Looking good, girlfriend.
It's awesome, huh?
So when Mikey asked Nadja and Payton if they wanted to move in with him into a property he had just purchased right outside Caldwell, they could not have been happier. Fresh surroundings, kind of away from reminders of Tom's death, which was, extremely hard for them. And this new place, with lots of land around it, they could have their horses there and their dogs. As I said, animals were a big thing for them. It was a dream come true.
Well, folks, here's my new backyard. Kind of liking this just a little bit.
It couldn't have been any better for the free-spirited mother and daughter. Hey kids, long time no see. Don't get too used to it though. This is a really quick visit to let y'all know we're moving. That's right. A new home has been found, and Mike, Payton Medley, and I are moving together. Boise, here we come. It was in early June that friends and family of both Nadja and Payton, they stopped hearing from them completely. I'm talking phone calls, texts. At one point in early June, Nadja, they had left their horses back in Ogden, in Utah, while they were doing up the new house in Caldwell, building fences and all that for the horses. So Nadja, she was supposed to go back to Ogden to friends to collect her horses and bring them to their new home. She never showed. She never called. Payton, teenage girl, always on their phones. Well, well, she wasn't anymore. At first, phone died, battery died, no signal. But it becomes worrying when it's continuous. And so calls would be made to the Caldwell police, asking them to do a welfare check.
Yes, I was wondering if I could a health check done on a friend of mine. Okay, and who are we checking on? Nadja Medley. My daughter's really good friends with her daughter, and there's been no correspondence for the last 10 days. We're just a little bit concerned.
This was on the 19th of June, 2017. Nadja, Payton, and even Mike himself, none of them had been heard from at all since about the 8th of June. So we're talking over 10 days since they had last been heard from. The police swung by that house they just recently moved into. The police arrived, knocking on the door, no answer, no sign of life at all on the property. No animals, no dogs, no barking, no nothing. There was just the summer heat and like a heavy presence. It was stifling, and out back was a shed, surrounded by flies. Emanating from that was a smell, a gruesome smell. The police opened up that shed, and inside, under a tarp, were bodies.
Jeez.
3 bodies. 3 female bodies. It was Nadja, it was Payton, and it was a third middle-aged woman, identity unknown. All 3 of them had been shot in the head.
I don't even have words for something like that. To have just no fucking feelings or value on life, just to throw them wherever because it's convenient for a sick fuck like this. My goodness.
3 of their dogs were also inside that shed, shot.
Oh my
also,
God.
And inside the house were more dead animals, cats, and a snake. They were dead from simply being locked inside this house for such a long time. But in all of this, there was no sign of Mike Bullinger.
Monday, deputies received a call to do a welfare check at a home off of KCID Road and 2026 in Caldwell. That's when they found the 3 bodies lined up behind a shed with some type of covering on top of them. And this suspicious setup led investigators to believe that they were dealing with a homicide.
The bodies, they look like they had been there for about at least 10 days, which would match up with about, the time, they'd last been heard from, essentially. Each of them was unrecognizable. As you can imagine, in the summer heat inside a shed under a tarp. All 3, 1 gunshot wound to the head. Nadja, Payton, and this 3rd woman had been executed. So who was this other woman, and where was Mike? It took 11 days before the 3rd woman could be identified. And her name was Cheryl Baker. Cheryl Baker was the wife of Gerald Michael Bullinger. Mike Bullinger.
Wow.
Cheryl was 56 years of age, and she had been married to Mike since 2010. Cheryl was also the co-owner of that house the Medleys moved into. Now, to state the obvious, Cheryl had no knowledge of the existence of Nadja and Payton, and they had no knowledge of the existence of Cheryl. Mike, he'd been living 2 lives for quite some time. Cheryl was a retired school teacher, but what she was into now was crafts and quilts. She was into the environment and was very spiritual, all that. Cheryl and her husband had borrowed money from the bank and bought that house in Caldwell, and were excited to be moving in. Cheryl was going to have a studio for her arts and all that. Mike had told Cheryl he would move into that house, he would head up there, early, and he would start doing it up, basically. All the things you need to do when you move into a new house, he would do them while Cheryl was at home, packing up their old house. Little did Cheryl know that what Mike was actually doing was moving in his girlfriend of 2 years and her daughter into that very house. How he managed to keep his two lives separate is quite astounding. They never learnt of each other. It's amazing. It's astounding. They posted on social media, well, the Medleys did, and Mike had no problem being in lots of pictures. Cheryl also lived in Ogden, the very same town the Medleys did. They lived 15 minutes apart. How he got away with it for so long, like over 2 years, I give up. I mean, I know he was a pilot, so right, he would be traveling, he'd be away from nights and weeks from each of them, but still, Janie Mac, that's crazy. And Cheryl and the Medleys would have remained none the wiser until ellipses. See, Mike had been married twice before he married Cheryl. Cheryl was actually his third wife. Both previous marriages ended in divorce, and they both said he was a lying, manipulative piece of shit. They called him selfish, dangerous, and a sociopath. The women in his life didn't have a clue about who he really was and his whole secret life, double life, whatever you want to call it. They hadn't a notion about the whole thing until it's believed. The 8th of June, right when Cheryl, she thought Mike was up, doing up the house, and she was packing, and she thought to herself, you know what? I'm going to surprise him at our new house. Surprise! Oh, fuck! She thought he would be there alone, doing up the house or whatever. So you can imagine Cheryl's astonishment opening up the door to the house she had just purchased with her husband of 7 years and finding a family already there. What Mike thought was going to happen, I have no idea. I mean, he must have known. He was moving his girlfriend and her daughter into a house that his wife would soon be moving into. How did the logic in his head work that he didn't think they would learn of each other? I have no idea. Regarding what exactly happened, we do not know, but he was there with his girlfriend and her daughter. His wife showed up, and Cheryl, Nadja, and Payton each ended up being executed with a gunshot wound to the head. And then Mike ran away. He killed them to cover up his dark secrets, and now he was on the run. And the hunt was on.
Authorities say this man, Gerald Michael Bullinger, is a person of interest in the murders of 3 women, each of whom died from a single gunshot wound. Investigators say the bodies of the 3 women were found covered in a shed on the property on KCID Road.
Autopsies were conducted yesterday, June 20th. Although complete results are not available at this time, it has been confirmed the deceased are all females and all died of an apparent single gunshot wound.
Now let's take a close look at Gerald Michael Bullinger, who goes by Mike. He's about 6'1", 240 pounds, and as you can see, has gray hair. Authorities say he was last seen in Ogden, Utah about 10 days ago. He might be driving a mid-2000s white Ford Focus with...
It was learned that on the 10th of June, he had breakfast in a local enough spot. And later on that day, he was back in Ogden, Utah. So the police were, 10 days behind him at least when the investigation started. He was driving his own truck, and he drove it to where he knew Cheryl's car was being serviced. He then drove away in her car. He did pop back home to his old house in Ogden, and he talked to Cheryl's friends briefly enough, and he asked them, "Hey, have you guys seen Cheryl?" All the while she was under a tarp in the shed. Then he made a big old drive from Ogden over 200 miles north and a 4.5-hour drive to the Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. Mike, he loved the outdoors, he was a hiker, and so that's where he went. He'd been there before. And that is where he vanished. Into the woods. The Grand Teton National Park is mega. Now, it's close to the much more well-known Yellowstone, but equally as remote and beautiful. Very easy to get lost in. In fact, recently a fellow Irishman, 27-year-old Cian McLaughlin, he disappeared in that park last year. He had moved from Ireland to Wyoming and he worked as a ski instructor. He was fit, outdoorsy, and he was in that park on the 8th of June 2021 hiking in the Lupine Meadows Trail. Despite many, many searches, he has not been seen since. Mike Bullinger entered the Grand Teton National Park on the 11th of June. He too has not been seen since. Cheryl's car was found on the 12th of July. In fact, by the time the police got there, as I said, at least a week and a half behind them, the staff were able to point the car out and said it had been there for a while. But Mike?
A group of hikers found the car in a remote campground northwest of Moran, Wyoming, in the Bridger Teton National Forest.
Given if they're going into this backcountry area, they're probably going to spend quite a bit of time back there. It's very remote.
Police tell me they found the car on July 12th, and since that time, they've been piecing together information and gathering clues to put a profile together of Bullinger to see if he's the type of person capable of surviving out in the wilderness.
Trying to figure, is he a survivalist?
So he went into the park and either A, is still in the park hiding somewhere, which I don't think is very likely. B, he died of exposure. C, he killed himself in the park. Or he went into the park and he left the park via like another exit and is long gone. Now, as I said, Mike was experienced in the outdoors. He was a hiker, but people who would later report sightings of him in the national park said he did not have the proper gear, he didn't have water, he didn't look like he was prepared for the area he was hiking in, and he was not a young man. Many searches were done. Dogs, helicopters, infrared, you name it. They found Sasquatch. They found a skunk ape. They found the goblins that were responsible for all of these missing people in National Park.
Oh my god, I fucking love Mike.
But what they did not find was Mike Bullinger. So either he escaped the park and is living somewhere else, or he is dead in the park, and nothing of him has been found. You would think they would have something by now, but it's a bloody big park, so there's a lot of looking to be done. But there's also a lot of animals there, wolves, coyotes, bears. Authorities were actually hoping that when, this kind of like animal hunting season began, it would help them out, because if he was dead, and, the scavengers would find him, they might chow down, spread him out. No. What more think, though, is that he escaped, and he is still out there. His first wife, Jackie, she'd been married to him for 10 years. She described him as a absolute manipulative sociopath, and she said sociopaths don't kill themselves. He probably escaped. He has a new life. He already had two. What's a third one? He found some poor woman that he could manipulate into taking him in, and yada yada yada.
Sheriff Donahue says Canyon County is still as devoted to this case as they were 3 years ago. He says we can't forget this happened.
We want to find justice and accountability for this family, so we'll never stop until we can close this book. It may take us some time, but we're not going to give up on it.
Over the years, follow-up searches have been done. Many of them. No Mike. So, he too, like me, is Mike out. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching this whole video. I hope you found the story as crazy and interesting as I did. Once again, it means a lot that you are here listening to me say these words at the end of the video. Here, go on. I'll see you as always real soon in the next whole video. But until then, please do take care of yourselves. Because I love you. Mike out.
I'll say it again. Make sure you guys go and like his content. Make sure you subscribe to his content. Dude is easily one of the best content creators on YouTube. And I hate to see that he doesn't have the type of or the amount of viewers as some others that are kind of half-ass winging it. I'm not calling out anybody because I happen to like a lot of these people, but he just seems to put in a lot more work. And yeah, I hope no matter what, like, I never care about people's financial status or whatever, but I hope he is getting paid, because, you know, through YouTube, because that dude's phenomenal. His personality, his respect towards those who were harmed or hurt, and how he goes after, you know, the people who are violent or killers, and his snarky comments crack me the hell up. I mean, he has a personality. He's perfect for something like this. Maybe one day he'll be on an Irish television station doing something. But yeah, the dude is phenomenal. Anyways, hope you guys and also enjoyed my reaction. Again, if you'd like, feel free to go ahead and like and subscribe. I'd greatly, greatly appreciate it. So until then, you will see me here in about another half an hour with another video. So, peace out.